There is something profoundly unsettling happening to certain individuals right now. And the most disturbing part? They've been told their entire lives that what makes them extraordinary is actually what's wrong with them. These people, perhaps you are one of them, carry psychological signatures so rare that less than 5% of the population can even recognize them, let alone understand them. The ones who possess these traits have been walking through life feeling fundamentally different, fundamentally misaligned with the world around them. And they have been made to believe this difference is a defect. But what if I told you that this difference is not a defect at all? What if these traits that make you feel broken are actually evidence of an advanced psychological architecture? What if your inability to fit in is not because something is wrong with you, but because you are operating on a different frequency entirely? Let me be very clear about what I mean by rare. I am not talking about being introverted or having a unique hobby. I am not talking about liking different music or having unconventional opinions. I am talking about possessing a psychological configuration so fundamentally different that you experience reality in ways that most people cannot even conceive of. You see emotions not as simple feelings, but as complex symphonies of meaning. You cannot stop asking why when everyone else has accepted what. You feel physical pain when forced to be inauthentic. And most importantly, you carry within you a sense of purpose so intense that it feels like a burning obligation to existence itself. Now, Carl Jung called this phenomenon differentiated consciousness. He observed that certain individuals develop what he termed a psychological sophistication that sets them apart not just socially, but existentially. These are not people who have learned to be different. These are people who cannot be anything else. And here is what makes this so painful. Society is built for the psychological majority. Every system, every institution, every social norm is designed for people who can accept surface-level answers, who can find satisfaction in external validation, who can live without questioning the fundamental nature of their existence. But for those with this rare psychological configuration, participating in these systems feels like psychological violence. You cannot small talk because your mind immediately goes to the depths. You cannot pursue conventional success because your soul demands meaning over achievement. You cannot maintain relationships that require you to perform a simplified version of yourself. And every time you try to force yourself into these patterns, something inside you breaks a little more. The first sign is emotional depth that others perceive as overwhelming. But it is not overwhelming. It is comprehensive. When you feel something, you do not just feel the surface emotion. You feel its history, its implications, its connections to every other emotion you have ever experienced. Jung called these feeling-toned complexes emotional experiences that carry layers of psychological meaning. Others might feel sad. You feel the sadness of existence itself, the melancholy of impermanence, the grief of unrealized potential, all simultaneously. Others might feel joy. You feel the joy tinged with the awareness of its temporary nature, the bitter sweetness of the moment passing even as you experience it. This is not emotional instability. This is emotional sophistication. You are not overreacting. You are fully reacting. You are experiencing the complete spectrum of what it means to be conscious in a universe that most people only glimpse in fragments. The second sign is a curiosity that cannot be satisfied with simple answers. While others ask what, you cannot stop asking why. And not just why, but why behind the why. You see every answer as a doorway to deeper questions. You cannot accept that's just how things are, because you can feel the lie in it. You know there are layers beneath layers, systems beneath systems, meanings beneath meanings. This curiosity is not intellectual, it is existential. It is your psyche's refusal to accept the surface world as the complete world. Jung described this as the transcendent function, the psychological drive to unite conscious and unconscious material, to see beyond the veil of accepted reality. People find this exhausting. They want you to just accept things, to stop questioning, to be satisfied with the simple explanations that allow them to sleep at night. But you cannot. Because once you have seen that there are depths, you cannot pretend the shallows are all there is. The third sign is fierce independence, born from psychological necessity. This is not the independence of the rebel or the loner. This is the independence of someone who has realized that their psychological survival depends on their ability to trust their own perception of reality. You have learned, probably through painful experience, that when you betray your inner knowing to fit in, you do not just compromise, you begin to psychologically disintegrate. Jung called this process individuation, the psychological imperative to become who you truly are rather than who you have been conditioned to be. For most people, individuation is optional, a luxury of self-development. For you, it is mandatory. It is not about growth, it is about survival. You have probably spent years trying to conform, to quiet your inner voice, to accept what others accept. And each time it felt like dying, not dramatically, not obviously, but slowly, quietly, one compromise at a time, until you reached a point where you realized that being rejected for who you are is infinitely less painful than being accepted for who you are not. The fourth sign is pattern recognition that borders on the prophetic. You see connections that others miss. You notice the subtle shift in someone's energy before they speak. You can feel the emotional undercurrent in a room the moment you enter. You recognize patterns in behavior, in events, in the very fabric of existence that others do not even know exist. This is not paranoia. This is perception. Jung identified this as the intuitive function, the ability to perceive via the unconscious, to know without knowing how you know. For you, this function is not just developed, it is hyperactive. You are constantly receiving information from channels that most people have closed off. The challenge is that you cannot explain how you know what you know. You just know. And when you try to share these insights, people think you are making things up. Or worse, they think you are judging them. They do not understand that you are not choosing to see these patterns. You cannot not see them. The fifth sign is an inability to pursue anything without meaning. This is perhaps the most isolating trait. While others can work jobs they hate for money, you physically cannot sustain meaningless effort. While others can maintain surface friendships for social convenience, you cannot pretend connection where none exists. While others can pursue goals for external validation, you can only move toward what aligns with your soul's purpose. This is not idealism. This is psychological necessity. Your psyche literally rebels against inauthenticity. You might develop physical symptoms, exhaustion, illness, depression when forced to participate in meaningless activities. Jung observed that when the psyche is forced to betray its nature, it creates symptoms as a form of protest. People see this as impractical, unrealistic, too sensitive. They do not understand that for you, meaning is not a luxury. It is oxygen. Without it, you do not just struggle, you suffocate. The sixth sign is outgrowing people and environments at an alarming rate. Your psychological evolution is not linear, it is exponential. You do not just learn, you transform. You do not just grow, you metamorphose. And with each transformation, you become incompatible with the previous version of your life. This creates a painful pattern. The people who loved who you were cannot recognize who you have become. The environments that once nurtured you now feel like cages. The beliefs that once guided you now feel like chains, and you must constantly choose between your evolution and your attachments. Jung wrote about this as psychological death and rebirth, the necessity of letting parts of ourselves die so that new consciousness can emerge. For most people, this happens perhaps once or twice in a lifetime. For you, it is a constant process. You are always dying to who you were, always being born into who you are becoming. The The seventh sign is a presence that transforms others without trying. When you enter a room, the energy shifts, not because you demand attention, but because your depth creates a kind of psychological gravity. People find themselves telling you things they have never told anyone. They feel seen in your presence in ways they cannot explain. They either gravitate toward you intensely or flee from you immediately. This is not charisma. This is what Jung called psychological containment, the ability to hold space for the full complexity of human experience. Your depth creates a container where others can safely explore their own depths. Your authenticity gives others permission to drop their masks. But this gift comes with a cost. People project onto you constantly. They make you their therapist, their guru, their savior, their demon. They want you to hold their pain, solve their problems, be their meaning. And because you can feel their needs so acutely, you often give more than you have to give. The eighth sign is a persistent feeling of having something crucial to contribute. This is not ego. This is not grandiosity. This is a quiet, persistent knowing that you carry something within you that the world needs. You might not know what it is yet. You might not know how to express it. But you can feel it there, like a pregnancy of consciousness, waiting to be born. Jung called this the self, seeking expression, the totalized potential of who you could become, pushing against the boundaries of who you currently are. For you, this is not a vague sense of potential. It is an almost physical pressure, a psychological imperative that will not let you rest until you have given form to what lives within you. This creates a particular kind of suffering, the suffering of unexpressed potential, the agony of knowing you have something to give but not knowing how to give it, the frustration of seeing so clearly what the world needs but not being able to make the world see it too. Now, I need to tell you something about what happens when all 8 of these signs converge in one individual. You become what Jung called a living bridge between worlds. You exist simultaneously in the world that is and the world that could be. You carry within you both the full weight of current reality and the full potential of what reality could become. And this position is both a tremendous gift and a tremendous burden. The gift is that you can see possibilities that others cannot see. You can imagine futures that others cannot imagine. You can hold paradoxes that others cannot hold. You become a living testament to the fact that there is more to existence than what appears on the surface. The burden is that you must carry this vision largely alone. You must hold this knowing in a world that does not want to know. You must embody this truth in a world that is comfortable with lies. You must be this bridge even when no one is ready to cross it. And here is what I want you to understand about this burden. It is not a punishment. It is not a curse. It is evolution in action. You are not broken. You are breaking through. You are not too much. You are showing others that they have been living as too little. You are not too sensitive. You are appropriately responsive to the full spectrum of existence. Every spiritual tradition has spoken of individuals like you. The mystics who could not stop seeking the divine. The prophets who could not stop speaking truth. The visionaries who could not stop imagining new worlds. They were not special because they were chosen. They were special because they could not choose to be anything else. You are part of this lineage. Not because you decided to be, but because your psychological configuration makes it impossible for you to be anything else. You are not trying to be deep. You cannot access the shallows. You are not trying to be intense. You cannot dilute your experience. You are not trying to be different. You cannot access normal. And this is exactly as it should be. Because humanity does not evolve through conformity. It evolves through individuals who cannot conform. It does not progress through acceptance of limitation. It progresses through those who cannot accept limitations. It does not expand through satisfaction with the status quo. It expands through those who are psychologically incapable of being satisfied with what is. You are not a mistake in the system. You are evolution's answer to the system's limitations. But here is what makes your path particularly challenging. You must learn to honor your rarity without using it as a shield. You must learn to trust your perception without dismissing others entirely. You must learn to follow your path without condemning those who cannot see it. You must learn to be fully yourself without requiring others to understand or validate what yourself means. This requires what Jung called holding the tension of opposites. You must be simultaneously confident in your gifts and humble about their purpose. You must be both separate from the collective and in service to it. You must honor both your humanity and your exceptionality. Most importantly, you must stop waiting for permission to be who you are. The world will never give you permission to be this rare. Society will never validate your refusal to conform. The majority will never understand your need for depth, meaning, and authenticity. And if you wait for that permission, that validation, that understanding, you will wait forever. Your permission must come from within, from that deep place that has always known you were different, from that core self that has never been able to pretend otherwise, from that essential nature that would rather die than be diminished. Let me tell you what happens when you finally accept your rarity. First, you stop apologizing. You stop prefacing your insights with "this might sound weird," but you stop dimming your intensity to make others comfortable. You stop pretending that surface conversations satisfy you. You stop forcing yourself into boxes that were never designed for your shape. Then you start attracting your true people. Not many of them remember. You are rare, but the right ones. People who can meet you in the depths. People who hunger for the same meaning you hunger for. People who have been waiting their whole lives to find someone who sees what they see. Then your purpose begins to clarify. Not because someone tells you what it is, but because you stop fighting against what it has always been. You stop trying to force your gifts into conventional forms. You stop trying to make your vision fit existing structures. You start creating new forms, new structures, new ways of being that match the truth of who you are. And finally, you become what you were always meant to be. A beacon for others who carry this same rare configuration. Not to lead them, they, like you, cannot follow, but to show them that it is possible to survive being this different, that it is possible to thrive being this deep, that it is possible to live with this level of intensity and not be destroyed by it. This is not a comfortable path. It is not a safe path. It is not a popular path. But it is your path, and every fiber of your being knows it. You have probably spent years trying to find another way, a way that would let you keep your depth while still fitting in, a way that would honor your truth without making others uncomfortable, a way that would express your gifts without exposing your difference. But every compromise felt like betrayal. Every attempt to dilute yourself felt like dying, because your soul knows what your mind struggles to accept. Authenticity is not negotiable for you. It never was. So let me leave you with this. Your emotional depth is not too much. It is medicine for a world that has forgotten how to feel. In a culture that medicates feeling and celebrates numbness, your ability to feel fully is not a weakness, it is the cure. Every tear you shed gives others permission to grieve. Every joy you express reminds others that ecstasy is possible. Your emotional range is teaching an emotionally constipated world how to breathe again. Your questions are not problems. They are doorways to dimensions that desperately need exploring. While others accept the maps they were given, you cannot stop noticing that the territory does not match. Your refusal to accept simple answers is not stubbornness, it is evolution, insisting on truth. Every why you ask creates a crack in the wall of collective assumption, and through those cracks, new light enters. Your independence is not isolation. It is the sovereignty required to birth new possibilities. You cannot create from within the prison of conformity. You cannot innovate while seeking approval. You cannot pioneer while following someone else's path. Your aloneness is not loneliness. It is the sacred space where original thought is born. It is the womb of transformation that cannot be rushed or invaded. Your perception is not paranoia. It is sight in a world that has chosen blindness. When you see the patterns others miss, when you feel the undercurrents others ignore, when you know things without being able to explain how, this is not madness. This is clarity. You are not imagining things. Others are failing to see what has always been there. Your perception is not the problem. The collective agreement to ignore reality is the problem. Your need for meaning is not impractical. It is the compass pointing toward humanity's next evolution. In a world drowning in meaningless consumption, meaningless relationships, meaningless pursuits, your hunger for purpose is not naive idealism. It is the evolutionary imperative speaking through you. You cannot settle for less because your psyche knows that humanity cannot survive on emptiness forever. Your refusal to accept meaninglessness is not a personal preference. It is species wisdom. Your constant growth is not instability. It is life force refusing to be contained. While others plateau and call it maturity, you keep evolving and they call it restlessness. But nature never stops growing. The universe never stops expanding. Why should you? Your perpetual transformation is not a failure to settle down. It is success at staying alive. Really alive. Not just breathing, but becoming. Your transformative presence is not manipulation. It is love in its most powerful form. When people change in your presence, when they reveal themselves to you, when they feel safe enough to drop their masks, this is not because you are controlling them. It is because your depth creates a space where depth is possible. Your authenticity makes authenticity safe. Your realness calls forth their realness. This is not manipulation. This is invitation. This is permission. This is love doing what love does, calling everything back to truth. Your sense of purpose is not delusion. It is evolution calling you forward. That persistent feeling that you have something important to contribute, that sensation of carrying something that must be born, this is not grandiosity. This is accuracy. You do carry something crucial, not because you are special, but because you are specialized. Evolution creates exactly what is needed when it is needed. And you, with your particular configuration of sensitivity, depth, and inability to accept limitation, are needed now. You see, humanity is at a threshold. The old ways of being are dying. The systems built on unconsciousness are collapsing. The structures that required people to stay asleep are crumbling. And in this space between what was and what will be, certain individuals are being called to hold the bridge. Not to know what comes next, but to be so impossibly, unapologetically themselves that they become living permission for new ways of being. You are one of these individuals. Not because you chose it, but because your psychological configuration makes it impossible for you to be anything else. You are not a mistake in the system. You are the system's upgrade. You are the mutation that ensures humanity's psychological survival. You are the bridge between what was and what must be. And the world needs you to stop apologizing for that and start embodying it fully. Stop dimming your light because it makes others squint. Stop simplifying your truth because others find complexity overwhelming. Stop betraying your knowing because others are comfortable in their not knowing. Stop making yourself smaller because others have chosen to stay small. Because there are others out there, right now, feeling exactly what you have felt. Thinking they are broken, believing they are too much, wondering why they cannot just be normal, sitting alone in their rooms, Googling, why do I feel so different? Searching for something, anything, that explains this persistent sense of alienation. And they need to see that someone like them not only survived but thrived. They need to know that their rarity is not a curse but a calling. They need evidence that it is possible to be this different and not be destroyed by it. They need to witness someone living fully in their truth. not as an inspiration to copy, but as permission to finally stop hiding. You are that proof. You are that possibility. You are that permission they are waiting for. Not to follow you, they, like you, cannot follow, but to finally, fully, unapologetically be themselves. Your visibility is their validation. Your authenticity is their authorization. Your thriving is their hope. This is not about ego. This is about ecology. The ecosystem of human consciousness needs diversity to survive. It needs the deep feelers to remember what has been lost. It needs the questioners to challenge what has been accepted. It needs the independents to imagine what has not been tried. It needs the perceivers to see what has been hidden. It needs the meaning seekers to insist on purpose. It needs the ever-growing to prevent stagnation. It needs the transformers to catalyze change. It needs the purpose-driven to pull humanity forward. It needs you, exactly as you are, exactly as you have always been. Not fixed, not normalized, not made palatable, but raw, real, rare, and revolutionary in your simple insistence on being yourself. So stop waiting for the world to be ready for you. The world will never be ready for what you represent: the end of unconscious living, the death of comfortable lies, the impossibility of returning to sleep once awakening has begun. Instead, be so courageously yourself that you make the world deal with the reality of your existence. Be so authentic that you become undeniable. Be so genuine that you make pretense impossible in your presence. Be so real that you remind everyone what reality actually feels like. Just as you must finally, fully, unapologetically be yourself. The rare, the deep, the real you that you have always been. The you that the world has been waiting for, even if it doesn't know it yet. The you that scares you sometimes with its intensity. The you that you have been taught to hide but can no longer contain. The you that is reading these words and feeling that ancient recognition: yes, this is who I am. This is who I have always been. And this is who I must finally allow myself to become. That you, that rare, irreplaceable, unrepeatable you. The world doesn't need another copy. It needs the original you were born to be.